Yes, as Carol said, I'm Rhoda and I work part-time for Growing Old Gracefully. And I'm really pleased, first of all, to introduce you to Maureen, or Mo, as I like to call her. If you'd like to come off mute, Mo. Hi, Mo. I met Mo when she was part of the Dementia Forum in Caritas. So it's great. It was great to meet you, Mo, and you brought a lot of insight and energy to that group. But Mo has also been linked with Growing Old Gracefully over the years in various different ways. She is from the Catholic parish of Immaculate Heart of Mary in Huddersfield. So I'm just going to ask Mo a few questions which we've already spoken about, so it's nothing that she doesn't know about. And first of all, I thought maybe you could just start by saying a little bit about yourself, how old you are, your background.
Of course. My name's Maureen Crossley. Everybody knows me as Mo. I am the only child of a French father and an Irish mother. I've lived in Huddersfield all my life, and I worked as a national sales manager for a field marketing company on the Mars account. So I was responsible for 88 people who had to, in their turn, to put confectionery on display in grocery stores to make sure that you all trip over it and buy it. So that was my role. I retired in 2020. And my retirement plans were varied. We were going to do all sorts of things. We have a son who lives in Austria, married to an Austrian girl. We were going to spend 6 months of the year with that family, and then 6 months of the year with my daughter and her 2 boys in Huddersfield. And then God looked at it and said, "I don't think so." Yeah, so that was my background. That was my background.
That's lovely. Thank you, Mo. Yeah, so as we've been talking about, losses of many different kinds, which can happen at all times of life, but they seem to be more frequent and more compounded in later life. So perhaps you could go on to describe some of the losses you have experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I retired in 2020 after a very, very busy life. I used to go away on a Tuesday morning and come home on a Thursday afternoon for 9 years. So to go from that to suddenly being retired, I filled my life with busyness. I joined everything under the sun that you could possibly think to join to fill my time, and I had a great independent life for about 4 or 5 months. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, things aren't always as we expect them to be. So I started to lose my independence quite quickly into my retirement, because my husband was taken ill quite well into my retirement, which affected his retirement. So the losses I experienced were varied. Loss of independence, whilst making sure that he kept his independence for as long as possible. We had long conversations about how things would be as time went on, but I think the main thing was when I first retired, I used to run every day, because I'd been sitting in panel dining rooms all my working life. So I used to run every day, and suddenly to not be able to run and not be able to go out for long walks, I really felt that loss quite severely. So time moves on, and I'll tell you the rest of the story as we go along.
Yeah, so in terms of Mike's illness, do you want to just talk a bit about that, and maybe a particular moment when it hit you that things were going to be quite different?
Yeah, happy to do so. We both worked out in the field, as we called it, and therefore we had one of our bedrooms in the home converted into a functioning office. So we used to sit in there on a Friday, and we used to make appointments for the following week. And this particular day, this significant moment, Mike used to go to colleges and externally verify the college's work that they had been doing in the electrical industry. And this particular day, he booked within half an hour's interval, he booked an appointment in Manchester and an appointment in Hull. Clearly, when he came off the phone, I said to him, "Blimey, I'm glad you don't work for me, because I'd have you in a report for that. That's shocking, Jenny, blimey." And when it all came out, it turned out that he couldn't find the college in Manchester the previous week, even though he'd been many times before, and had crammed it on to the North East week. So bells started to ring, and of course, as Carol mentioned, guilt kicks in at that point. I'm away 2 or 3 days a week, every week for 9 years. Should I notice something else? So I decided I would investigate how we could get to the bottom of what this was all about. So I did so. Because I really wanted to be sure that I did everything I could to see him as much as possible. So I put some strategies in place.
Yeah, so although you've not mentioned the word, you knew by then that it was dementia.
Not quite, no, because
No.
at that point I just made an appointment for him to go and see our GP as a well-man clinic, to a well clinic.
Okay, yeah, sorry to jump the gun there.
Yeah,
so maybe you want to explain how it unfolded and what kind of strategies.
So I made an appointment with the doctors, with the GP quietly, and just saying, can you just have a look at Mike, because Mike's always managed his own life as I had, and then suddenly this was occurring, and I said, it's really very strange. So he went along to Wellman Clinic, and he did lots of tests, did the doctor, both psychological and mental and physical tests. Mike was in fine health physically, but it was established after a few weeks and months of tests that at that stage he had something called mild cognitive impairment. That didn't affect him being able to drive, it didn't affect him doing his job, it didn't affect him playing golf, that's for sure, and he carried on for as long as he could. But it did actually set off a sequence of events. For example, he had to join something called a memory clinic, where he had to go along every month or so to the memory clinic and see how things were getting along. And I did a carers course, so that we were armed right at the early stages of this in case it developed into anything more serious or sinister, because we had long discussions, and it was our wish that whatever happened, he would stay at home. Now, that was a big ask in 2020, and it took a lot of organising, but as Rhoda knows, I'm a very organised person. I love organising things and people, and I really enjoy that. But I was determined that Mike's quality of life was going to be as rich as possible. And I had him doing absolutely everything that a person with early stage dementia could possibly do. I think he did about 6 groups at one point. So we were all over the show, including Growing Old Gracefully, because he came over to the meetings at Hinsley Hall as long as he was able to do so. I accepted friends and family and church and community help from every direction possible. I turned nothing down. It was the richness of all of those people integrating together that gave Mike his independence. I'll talk a little more in a while about one specific group who helped him tremendously, but he had a very, very full dementia life. Very, very full. Probably, looking back, maybe a bit too full.
So how about for yourself then? How did you find some kind of strategies to help yourself cope as well?
Well, I love busyness. I love order. I love to be busy. There's not a minute of the day when I'm not full of something, and I still do the same thing now. But I did actually have a bit of a wobble one day at church, and the priest at the time asked me if the St. Vincent de Paul could help, because the St. Vincent de Paul will help people. So that became quite a pivotal part of our lives, because 4 gentlemen turned up every Tuesday morning for 3.5 years, rain, hail, shine, snow, whatever, and took Mike out for a walk. Because Mike wasn't a drafts and snooker kind of a man. He was a walking man. He loved to be outside, play football, go to the gym, all of that. So we did that. But my faith was very important to me, and I was very grateful for the source of help I got from the community and also from the church.
Yeah, so I don't know, do you want to say a little bit more about that? How maybe your understanding of God and the world might have changed, or how it played a part in all of this?
I don't think it changed, but I became more involved. I think I would say I was a Sunday Catholic for many years, because work was foremost, bringing up a family and all of that. But I did find that I needed the richness of church. I needed the people to do things for us. So I'll give you 2 examples of how people helped us. We've always been walkers. We've done the Munros and mountains and blah, 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 blah. But one particular group of walkers put something together for us to actually have a fundraiser and a spiritual uplift. And we went walking. 63 people walked. And then we had lunch afterwards, and a huge amount of money, I thought, was raised that allowed us to go to Lourdes. And we went to Lourdes in 1996 with full of high hopes and expectations to enrich us fully, spiritually. And in actual fact, it was the scariest opportunity that I've ever had in my life, because we lost Mike. We lost him. He went off walking. Nobody could find him for 3 hours. 100 people were out looking for him in Lourdes, and he wasn't in Lourdes. He'd gone for a walk. And he was 10 miles away and found by the police late that night.
Oh, gosh.
So from that moment, Mike was never left alone again. It was just the strategies we had to put in place were that he would have 24/7 attention. Very, very hard. My job was to stand by the CCTV and watch where he'd gone, whilst this army of people were out looking for him. And as I say, everybody was in Lourdes and in the sanctuary, and Mike was walking along the main street going to the next town. So armed police brought him back at 10:30, and the hotel was staying in fed all of us at 10:30 because nobody, clergy, nobody had eaten, everybody was out looking for him. Obviously, strategies in Lourdes changed after that, so that people were prevented from leaving the building. If they wanted to go downstairs, they weren't allowed to do so. Between him leaving the bedroom and me leaving the bedroom was 3 minutes, and it took us 5 hours to find him. So lots of strategies were put in place, both at Lourdes and home and at church and friends and family, and he was never left alone again. And to this day, I'm bitterly sorry that I didn't go to him quicker than 3 minutes, because if I could have caught him before he left, that worry would not have scarred us all for so many years.
Yes, so sorry to hear about that.
A lovely gentleman. He was a lovely gentleman who would not hurt a fly, was the kindest man in Shula. He really was a lovely man, and God certainly gave us a good one there. We were married for 50 years last October.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for being so open about that, and how harrowing it must have been, that incident. But obviously, often these crises then make you put in place the things that need to be put in place.
Absolutely, yeah.
So as you've alluded, Mike did pass away, and so it would have been a great time of a great loss for you, and grieving. Maybe tell us a bit about how things have been since he passed.
Well, Mike died in March 8th, 2021, right in the middle of COVID. Not the very, very severe COVID, but the still within the restrictions. He died at home in my arms, in his own bed, which is what we'd always wanted. And he had become ill when he was 61, and he died when he was 71. So for 10 years, he's had intensive care at home. And even the hospice left him here and came to him at home. So it was very tough indeed. But I picked up the mantle of getting the best funeral for him that we could, given the circumstances. 30 people was all that was allowed. My son and his family weren't allowed to come over from Austria, but they joined us via WhatsApp. Every decision that was made, the children sang at the funeral, and we recorded the songs that they sang. We had as lovely a funeral for him as we could. And the guys that had walked with him for 3.5 years and then pushed him in his chair around country parks joined my 2 older grandsons as pallbearers. So as good as we could do, we did. And in terms of my faith, I believe it was strengthened by the opportunity God gave me to be able to do that work and to be as patient as I've tried to be from time to time. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't a saint. There were times when I'd say, please get up off the toilet, Mike, and you've been there 20 minutes, and all that kind of thing. But God love him, he was his kindest man, never angry, never did anything other than what he could. But I'm now both involved with the SVP, looking after both older people and mini Vinnies at junior school, making sure that they do good things in school. And also I'm still involved in Growing Old Gracefully and doing things as much as I can. When Mike was early doors ill, I began to play the ukulele to entertain him. And I joined a ukulele group later, and now I play the ukulele band. But I can still hear him saying, oh dear, try harder, when I got a wrong note.
Oh, that's really great. Thanks ever so much, Mo, for being so candid and honest about your experiences of loss. I think we'll leave it there and move on, if that's okay with you.
That's perfect.
Thank you so much.
The only thing I say to wrap up is take every day as it comes, people, and put as much in, because in doing that, I believe we're doing God's will.